Welcome back to my channel. This is DebtFree CF, and I'm going to walk you through how to set up a budget similar to what you see here, which is my current December budget. And we're going to set it up in Excel. So basically the left half over here with the budget income, the categories, the planned and actual expenses, we're going to set that up in Excel. So first off, I've got just a blank Excel worksheet here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually get rid of some of the empty space just so that it's not quite as overwhelming. So whenever you open Excel worksheet, it always has the first number of rows, or sorry, the first number of columns is always the alphabet. I don't ever use above like L or M or something like that, so I'm just going to say the column P all the way through Z. I don't need those. So I clicked on the top where the letter is, then I used the shift key to click on the next letter, and it highlights all of the columns, and it goes all the way down to the end of the page. Then I am right clicking on the letters at the top while they're highlighted, and then I'm going to select that I want to delete the columns. And it should be deleting all the columns. I'm not quite sure why I only did one at a time because they're all selected. Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. Well, I'm going to go ahead and delete, and then I can use Control Y. Looks like it's just infinitely over there. Okay, well, let's ignore that. And then from top to bottom, it looks like it's got about 35. I don't need all 35, but we'll deal with it as is. Okay, so I need a top row for the title, right? So I'm just going to merge these couple together. Doesn't really matter how many. And then I'm going to put in, for example, December 2017. And then I'll go ahead and center that. You can change the formatting of it. So under the type of information that's in the cell, you can change how it's written out in terms of dates. So I'm going to do a long date. I don't actually want the date in here. Let me see if it'll let me change it up. There we go. And then these first couple columns are going to be our categories. So we'll start with income, and if you have person 1 and person 2, you can put in names, you can put in the location of the work, whatever. Then there should be a total for the income category. I usually leave a set of space. I'm just hitting enter as I go to move to the next cell. Then I've got the expenses category, and that's going to be all of the different things spent in a month. I go in order of priority, so if we look at the budget real quick, let me just grab this information. I'll just paste that in here for ease. So I usually go by the order of priority just in case if somebody is referencing this and they're working their way out of debt, they know what they should budget for first, and then when they have enough to go through all of their absolute basic needs, they also move on to payments on debt, and then after all of the debt's paid off, then some of the other wants rather than needs in a budget. So food is the top priority. You call it food, groceries. If you're getting out of debt, it should be only food from the grocery store, cooking at home, getting the best deal you can. If you're not getting out of debt, you're building emergency fund, or you're on house payments and whatnot in the baby steps that Dave Ramsey talks about, then you could be separating food and restaurants so that you're having a balance. I don't bother to separate them. I probably only do meals out maybe 2 or 3 times in an entire month, and that's mostly because my business my company that I work for does catered lunch on Friday, which is kind of nice because then I get the feel of not having to cook on a weekly basis, but I don't have to pay for it. So food is the first thing. If you have medication that you take on a daily basis, that could also go in the food category because it's going to be like number one priority. Then the next thing would be all of your utilities. I put them together alphabetically, so I do electric, gas, water if there's water, trash if there's trash. The building I live in, water's included, so I also put internet in here because I basically will not live without internet. But if you're working on getting out of debt, you may be considering cutting that as an option. Then there's gas for the car. That would be for work transportation if you're getting out of debt, or just the absolute necessities of driving. That way you're saving as much on gas as possible. I work close enough that I can walk most of the time. Walk or bike, depends on the weather, depends on if I'm running late, but I do have that option, so that cuts down on the amount of gas I use. Then you have rent or your mortgage. And then if you're working on debt or payments of any kind, loans that you owe somebody, that would be the next category. I don't happen to have any of those, but I do have categories that I also put in here, and I'll show you that. I have cell phone that I put in. I have insurance that I put in because those are monthly payments that I make. Medical insurance and car insurance are separate. Medical I don't actually pay for right now. It's included in my partner's medical coverage. And then car insurance I pay on a family plan, and I pay every 6 months. But I sock it away each month to make up for that. And then I have a pet expense in here because I do have animals. So I'm going to put medical in here. That would be if I had a copay, like I knew I was going to go to the doctor. I have my pet expenses, which are socked away on a monthly basis to pay for vaccines. That's once a year, and then a certain amount that I've calculated is about the average of how much it costs for food and litter throughout the year. And then I've got my car insurance. So I've got those set up. Oops, not M. And after that is then credit card payments, any other subscriptions, monthly things, Netflix, cable would usually go with internet because a lot of times they're lumped together. So those kinds of things, all condensed. After car insurance for me personally, I put in what I'm sending to retirement and what I'm putting into savings. And then all in all, I've got the tally or the total for the expenses category. Then I skip a line just to keep them separate, and then what I do is I transpose, or I move down the tally for the income, so total income, and then I move down the tally or the total for expenses. And this should be expenses. And then I automatically calculate the variance. So the variance would be the difference between the two categories. The reason I do that is so that I can keep track of making this a zero-based budget. Okay, so now I'm going to adjust by hovering between the two columns. I'm going to adjust the width of the column that is the largest. I'm going to actually get rid of the word tally because I want it to be a little bit more fluid, neat between the two. If you hover on the line and double click, it also jumps to the exact width of the longest in the column. I'll show you an example. So for in here, if I put estimated and then I hover between the two columns and double click, it's going to shrink to that. And then if I put in actual here and I hover in between the two, double click, it makes it kind of nice, although these two I would rather have them be kind of similar in size. When you put in a number, you may have to adjust it. So like for example, rent is 2,000, which is probably one of the higher numbers I'm going to have in a box. So I want to make sure it's at the very least the width of that. For the title areas, I prefer that everything is centered, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then these, yeah. The other thing you can do is you can copy and paste. So using my keyboard commands Control-C and Control-V for copy and paste, that highlighting thing you can get rid of by hitting Escape. And if you're working inside a cell and you need to get out of it, you can also hit Escape. Now I want to format these to be dollars or currency, so I'm selecting the couple boxes and then over in my numbers section, just clicking on the dollar sign there. Same with these, and switch those, and then over here as well, switch those. So here now it shows that I've got the number 2000, but these little hashtags or pound symbols mean that it's just not large enough for the actual value that was in there. The box size itself, the width, is not large enough, so I just need to make it a little bit wider. I'm going to make this bigger and a little bit easier to read. So all of my text, I'm going to go ahead and make that size 14, just so it's a little bit easier for you to see. And then I prefer to have them right aligned. Oops, I totally did that on this one. So that I can kind of line up the numbers. The numbers will all be right aligned. And then I'm going to set up my formulas or my calculations now. So whatever number goes in here is going to be labeled as B for the column, 3 for the row, so it's going to be B3. So here when I do a formula, I'm going to say that this cell, the value of it is going to be equal to B3, which is that box, and you can actually see that it highlights. And then I'm going to add B4, the one immediately below it, and you can see it highlights that one as well, and then I can hit enter. Now there's not a value in there, so it just gives me a dollar sign, but actually nothing else. And then there's a second way that you can do this. I can highlight the two rows together, those two cells that are one above the other, and I can use the auto sum button over in the upper right corner, and it's going to give me a sum formula, but I don't actually want it in that box, so I'm going to hit escape, and I'm going to say that I want really the box below it to be the auto sum, and then it's asking of which boxes, and I can highlight. So it's going to add box C3 and C4. So from C3 to C4 is why there's the colon. Hit enter, adds the number. So I can do that a little bit faster by in the expenses section. I can do it a little bit faster by using the auto sum. So in this box, it's going to be the auto sum of, and it tries to guess. You can actually grab the box and say, oh, not quite that high, these ones, or you could correct in the letters. So I'll show you on the second route, correcting in the typed part of it. So here it thinks, oh, you want to go to C8, C11? I go, no, I actually want to go to C8, and then I can hit enter. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to transpose. So it's, instead of being a sum formula of some kind, it's just going to be equal to the value of what was in the box. So this total income is going to be equal to this box. This total expenses is going to be equal to this box. And the variance is actually going to be a formula. It's going to be equal to the total income minus the total expenses. And then these are going to repeat. So let me show you something that's kind of cool. If you highlight the three columns and then you click on the little square in the bottom right corner, you click on that and drag to the right, it's going to duplicate it. But what it's going to duplicate it as, it's smart enough to know, well, you were working the B column before and you're moving this to the C column, so you want to continue to work in the C column now that you're in the C column. So I can double check that by clicking inside my total income box in the C column, and I can see that in my formula bar, it's talking about the total from the top in the C column. So I've got those kind of set up. Note that when you click inside a formula, you click somewhere else, it's going to change to that box instead. So I need to click back and either hit enter or escape. So that's the very basic of getting this set up in terms of the labels in one column, the estimated amount in a second column, the actual amount in a third column, setting all of the boxes that should be for values to dollar or accounting or currency, and then setting up the formulas where a box is for a total is all of the columns, boxes above it in that category, all added together, whether you're doing it with a single plus symbol or you're doing it with a sum total. The sum total works better when you've got multiple boxes. A addition formula works when you're kind of picking and choosing. So for example, in the pet category, I will always put estimated as the total amount of pet expenses over the entire month, but then I will use the actual category to calculate, or I used to use the actual column to calculate the half of that I was responsible for, and then that would give me the number of the half that my roommate would be responsible for. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll do a separate video that's just how to now format all of this, because I just wanted to do a short video on the actual structure, and I'll do a second video on formatting. But we've got some of the formulas in there ready to go. All right, well, this is my channel, DebtFree CF. Come back and find out how to format this. Check out some of my other videos for my monthly budgeting, and I will see you soon.